Sugar Daddy story. At last I married my sugar daddy. And though that sounds like the opening line of some tabloid scandal or a cynical confession whispered over too many glasses of wine, in truth, it was a tangled, messy, often painfully human journey that no Instagram post could capture. Beginning in a year when my bank account hovered between $23 and overdrawn, my student loans were suffocating me like a slow leak in a locked car, and I was working 2 part-time jobs, one as a barista in a cafe with perpetually sticky counters, the other as a receptionist in a wellness clinic where clients paid more for a single massage than I made in a week. When I first met Henry, who would eventually become the man I promised to love for the rest of my life. Though in that moment, I didn't think about vows or forever. I thought about the fact that his shoes alone probably cost more than my monthly rent, and how he carried himself like someone who had never worried about whether his debit card would be declined. We met through an app that was, let's be honest, a marketplace for arrangements, a place where profiles didn't pretend to be about soulmates or fate, but were transparent about expectations. And I had joined it with the mix of guilt and relief you feel when doing something you swore you never would, telling myself it was just to look, just to see what the world was like on the other side of that glass wall where women carried handbags worth more than my car. And when his message popped up, polite and direct, "You seem like someone I'd enjoy getting to know. Would you like to have dinner?" I hesitated only because it felt too easy, too quick. But then I remembered the envelope of bills I had left on my kitchen table, each marked overdue, and the fact that my fridge contained half a jar of peanut butter and some wilted lettuce. So I said yes. And that yes took me to a quiet, dimly lit French restaurant where the air smelled of truffle and butter, where I wore my nicest dress, bought secondhand but pressed carefully the night before, and he wore a navy suit that looked like it had been tailored just for him, which, of course, it had. And our conversation that night was unexpectedly easy. Not the awkward negotiation I'd braced for, but a genuine back and forth about books, travel, the absurdity of reality TV, and the best type of bread. We disagreed. I said sourdough, he said brioche. And when the check came, he didn't make a show of paying, just handled it quietly, then walked me outside into the cool night air and handed me a small white envelope, which I took with fingers that felt both greedy and ashamed. And inside later, I found 5 crisp $100 bills, my rent for the month, plus enough to buy groceries. And though I told myself it was a one-time thing, we kept meeting. Dinners, weekends away, gifts that made my stomach twist with gratitude and unease. And somewhere in between champagne toasts and the first time he told me about his late wife, I stopped keeping mental tallies of what I owed him, and started noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, or how he'd always choose a seat facing the door because it's good to see who's coming in. A habit from his years building a business from scratch before selling it for more money than I could comprehend. And yes, the arrangement was still there, unspoken but understood. But there was something else growing too, something messier than a contract. And when I told my best friend about him, she looked at me like I was announcing I'd joined a cult, her voice dripping with concern as she said, "You know what this is, right? He's buying your time." And maybe he was, but I was also choosing to give it, and that choice mattered. Though explaining that to people felt impossible, because the world likes its narrative simple. Gold digger or true love, never the complicated, slippery space in between where 2 imperfect people meet each other's needs in ways neither can fully articulate. And as months passed, the gossip started. Not just from strangers. That all changed when one person asked for my number and I didn't ghost. He was 30, an architect, spoke a few languages, and was obviously well-read. He casually mentioned Alvaro Siza, one of my favorite architects, in a text. We got on a call when he was driving. He was just getting off a meeting with a client. He told me his name was Jay. He had a soft, gentle voice and a mixed accent. Mostly British, but definitely a lot of other things that I couldn't quite make out at that time. He asked me to tell him about my life, which made me feel like he was coaxing a story out of me, but in a way that I was happy to comply with. Somehow he made me want to tell him about myself, to expose myself to his gaze, to open myself up to him, to be seen. He was every bit my type. We joked about work and COVID politics. After our hour-long phone call, I was blushing and my heart was fluttering in my chest. I told my friend I had called a stranger from a dating app. "Okay," they said. "Which one?" I smiled and didn't answer. On my second call with Jay, I joked with him that we had met on the worst dating app ever. He laughed. "Yeah," he agreed. "It's a cesspool." Then he casually asked me why I was on Seeking and if there was anything he could help me with. "No," I said. "Absolutely not." I felt my pride growing in front of someone I actually liked. After about a month of texting, we met up when I was on winter break. He picked me up from wandering all around Chelsea. We got dinner and cocktails and talked about the galleries in the neighborhood. I had most of the cocktails since he needed to drive. 4 drinks in, I was a little drunk and tried to make out with him in the corner of the bar. I snuggled near him and buried my face in his neck. He wanted to get me a cab, but I argued with him that I wanted to take the train. Before he drove me back to the station, we made out in his car. I really liked him and begged for him to touch me. I was definitely drunk. I took his hands and put them on my chest. I wanted him to touch me, badly, because I wanted him to take things from me. I wanted him to touch me just so that I could be reassured that he was interested in me. I had all of that in my head. "This is so high school," he laughed. I kept begging him, and he put his jacket over my lap. He fingered me and edged me in the front seat of his car. He was good. Of course he was. He stared deep and steady into my eyes when I moaned into his mouth and begged him for more. I was drunk, and he was sober. I was a mess, and he was in control, tidy, clean. He tasted me on his fingers and wiped his hands on an alcohol pad. After I got home, I texted him that I thought I was falling in love with him. He took control, and I caught feelings. And I was. Even if it was just infatuation, love came easy for me this time. He texted back, "I'm overwhelmed, floored by how real you are, how vulnerable you are toward me, and I stand speechless. And if I think about it now, I don't remember the first time we said, 'I love you' to each other. But it must have been easy, and it must have felt right." Soon I was telling my friends that I was falling in love and lying about how we met. "Oh, he's a friend's friend, you know." Perhaps falling in love with him was easy because it felt guided. He always seems to know exactly where we are, where I am, and where we're headed. The first time we met, I told him about the person I had just broken up with. He was too protective of himself, I said. I told him how my ex said I had put too much effort into our relationship, and how my ex felt so bad about the imbalance that he felt guilty and needed more space. My architect patted my head. "I'm sorry, baby," he said. "What kind of bullshit is that?" He laughed a little. "I don't want you to be protective of yourself with me," he said. "I want you to love me fully." I felt grateful and comforted. Even in sex, I begged him to take more of me, push me more, show me new things. He said, "No, we'll get there someday. But now I want to meet you exactly where you are. I'm right here." Loving Jay feels comforting because it feels like he's seen and done everything. I appreciate that sense of psychological security. I like that I can yield control to him and trust myself to him, knowing he'll take care of me. The first time we met, before we headed to the bar, I was jacketless and underdressed in a tank top. It was nippy out, but I didn't mind. He picked me up in his white Tesla. I got in and smiled at him, looking at him timidly through the fourth wall of my little social experiment that was wearing very thin. He smiled warmly and took my hands, then took me into his arms. "You're cold," he said. "That's not okay. I can't let my baby be cold." I protested. I was genuinely uncomfortable, but he took me to a clothing store and bought me a down jacket anyway. "That's much better," he said. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't like that him buying me something was the first thing we did together. It made the sugar daddy thing feel too real. In one of our arguments a month later, I screamed at him that made me feel like a prostitute. I could tell from the look in his eyes and his shaking hands that I had hurt him. I couldn't be angry anymore. I sighed and took his hand and placed it over my heart. "Feel me," I said. I snuggled close to him and said I was sorry. He held me close to him and told me he was sorry for ever making me feel that way. I screamed at him that made me feel like a prostitute. Am I a sugar baby? The truth is, I still don't exactly know what to make of this. Are we in a relationship? If so, is it a sugar relationship? Is it a normal relationship? Can it be? I still have moments of getting angry at him that feel silly, Like when I insisted on paying for a box of strawberries and he wouldn't let me. He bought all of my plane tickets so that I can come over to see him on weekends. There are moments when I get uncomfortable with money, when I, for a fleeting moment, think that all of what we have is bought and sold and is doomed, and could not be otherwise. Despite all of this, I know I'm still falling more in love with him every passing day. I've started to flinch a little less, trust him a little more. There are still fourth-wall moments that remind me of how we met, like when his personal assistant emailed me that Mr. Jonathan said he had a memorable time with you and asked for me to make time for you soon. Please let me know your availability. But now it's something I can smile about.